Preamp your shit. Yes, this is a shit Freya, and it's heavy. You talk about preamps. Oh, 2-channel systems. Oh my goodness. I got a Freya Plus and a Freya S to talk about from Schiit. Freya is the love of fertility. Not for the love of fertility. She is the goddess of love and fertility and battle and death. It's when I educated myself about Norse mythology. Very crazy names from Schiit to use all this stuff. Jason's actually written Norse mythology books, for those of you who don't know. So anyway, switching gears. Freya Plus, Freya S. So let's just go have a quick history lesson. Originally there was Freya, and Freya had 4 tubes, and Freya had, the heaters, the heater was on the tubes all the time. So quickly changed, became the Freya Plus, which now the Plus, to get the 4x gain mode in the tubes, you have to wait. There is a delay, and because you have to wait for the tubes to warm up. So that's kind of a trade-off. Freya S means total solid state. So let's just jump to the differences right quick, just so we can clear our head about the differences between Freya S and Freya Plus. And then also the now discontinued Freya N, which is the same thing as Freya Plus, just using novel 9-pin tubes, and but also their operating points are changed to match those 9-pin tubes, like the 6922 types and stuff. So I'm going to switch to this before we even get to the other stuff, so because it'll make our discussion about these so much easier. So here's the 3, and here's the breakdown between the 3 stages. So you have, in the Freya, you have 3 stages of gain. Purely passive, which is the same across the board. Input, output. There's no change in the like if you have an unbalanced source, you're going to have balanced out, but it's not going to be purely balanced. Okay? No conversion, just input versus output. Also, so now we get to 1x, and that's just a buffer mode, okay? So that's not changing the gain, you're just hitting buffers. So the S uses the Nexus, or what is Schiit has trademarked as Nexus. And Nexus is, and I have it down here, the current feedback with nested differential stages. So it's basically like current feedback buffer and current feedback gain stage. Okay, so that's basically what is going on with Nexus is current feedback. Just so you know, and also Schiit uses Nexus, I think, in like other products as well for this current feedback stuff. So, and current feedback is one of the advantages to it, is supposed to like reduce distortion and all that kind of stuff. So anyhow, the specs that I have here of like a negative 115 dB, that is the signal to noise ratio for those that like really care about it. So if you look at Freya Plus 1x, it's using a JFET buffer. So using discrete JFET. So not bipolar, not FET, JFET. So you get a negative 100. So it's like about 5 dB quieter. Freya N, same thing. Like I said, the only difference between Plus and N is the 6SN7 versus like novel tubes, like the 6922 types. So then we move up to 4x gain. Okay, and this is where things sort of start to change. It's still using, the S is still using Nexus. And you get like about a 5 dB difference. But then Freya Plus it's using all tubes. So that's basically what you get with Freya Plus is, and I'm going to switch here to the desktop right quick so we can kind of like understand. So we have 2 sets of tubes. If I can get here. So we have 4 tubes. This is like the left channel, and this is the right channel. This side is doing gain, and this side is doing buffer. Okay, so they're dual triodes, and one side of the triode is doing like the positive side, one is doing the negative. Same with the buffer. So really easy to kind of understand why we need 4 tubes, and yes, they are different gain and buffer. Okay, so now we're going to go back here, and you get that it's also a 5 dB difference in the tubes, but to be a negative 115 dB, I mean, that's insane for tubes, for tube gain. All right, so, and it's the same for Freya N, right? The only thing that's different is the operating point's different, but it's the same amount of gain. The list, not available on the Freya S. So the list is the solid state tubes. And for Freya S, it gives us a 5x gain. And the only really trade-off is like 1 dB of noise, and the same for Freya N. The tube, though, I also want to note here, one of the interesting things I found about the tube in reading about all of this is that the tube differential triode input with semi-circulotron follower stage. Ooh, I like that word. I like circulotron. That's one of my favorite tube things, because I guess that goes back to the Mjolnir amp and also my Ragnarok amp. Big fan of circulotron. So, and I can hear it. I really like Freya Plus. So let's just go now back to the desktop. One more thing I wanted to show is the volume control. And I have this plugged up, and the reason I'm like leaning over is because I want to get the microphone close to the Freya so you can see. Now the Freya S is the same as the Freya Plus, okay, as far as like the volume control. It's got this like stepped attenuator inside. So I'm just going to flip the power switch on, which it should be. Okay, there we go. So right now it's in mute, and the signal is, this little thing is telling me that it's booting up, because it has like a microcontroller on board, so it's got to do its thing. This hole is just for the remote sensor. So as soon as everything stabilizes, it will unmute, because the mute button is lit and the gain button is lit. So now it is safe. You can't really see because of the light. Let me move it, but you can see the mute is not lit up. It kind of looks like it, but it's really not, because if I lit it up, that's lit. That's not lit. It's just getting the brightness from its neighbor here, which is in 1x mode. So, and then I'll go through the gain modes right quick. So it's going to switch to 3x or 4x mode. So now it's in 4x. And then now that is passive mode. So there's no lights for passive mode. So both lights will light up for 4x, only one light for 1x. And the Freya Plus is exactly the same. Now here's the cool thing. Here's the remote. So when you hear this, it is not broken inside. There's no... That is basically how it is supposed to happen, okay? You can manually turn this, but you will hear that noise, and that is the individual like relays clicking these stepped attenuators, these fixed resistors. And then I'm going to use the volume control on the remote. So it's up. That's just how it sounds. And And what's funny is actually sitting this close, I can actually hear the motor of the volume control. But I just wanted to show that. I thought that was really neat to kind of show with the Freya, because I know Schiit gets a lot of questions from their inbox. It's like, I got this Freya, it's making this clicking noise. I think it's broken. It's not broken. That's just the step attenuators. And we'll kind of go through like what it is all about. I mean, there's nothing really on this side except for the, it says Freya. And then, but we're just going to shift on here and get the different. Now, that my buddy put these like things on here because basically what happened that nobody really cares about is that I had an S, and a friend of mine said, you should try a plus. I have a plus, and I'd rather actually go back to an S. So why don't I send you this, and if you like it, you can buy it from me, and then we'll work out some sort of trade deal for the S. And I said, okay, fine. So he sent it to me, and now I'm keeping the plus. So that's basically what I have. We can kind of see the difference between the black and the gray here. The silver uses the silver knobs. Black uses the gray knobs. This right here is a mute button. This right here is the gain. Okay. That changes the gain. And you can see it's got a little circle with a little arrow, which is also the same on the remote. And then we have this right here changes the input, and it just cycles through our 5 inputs. Just to get an idea of the remote. We have volume up, volume down. This is our mute. This is our gain, which has a little circle with a little arrow out of it. And then this is our input, which has a little arrow with a little circle. International symbols. So, and then the remote's kind of cool because it's like this milled aluminum, and I have a toothpick here. The reason why is because we'll show you to change the battery on these, because I know they get this question a lot, is that this little hole, you just push, and then it comes, the whole circuit board will kind of like come out. It's held on by these 4 like magnets right here, and it's just a computer CR2032 battery, and it has a little LED light. So if you ever need to change a battery, that's where it is. Your remote stops working. So kind of a neat little design. Now a lot of you are probably screaming at me to flip around the back, flip around the back, flip around the back, flip around the back. Let me look at the back. Everybody's got to look at the back. It's fine. We'll look at the back. So there is the back, and I'll zoom in here so you can get it in focus. So you have your inputs: balanced input 1, balanced input 2, unbalanced input 3, 4, and 5. Then we have balanced out, left and right, or right and left. And then we have our 2 single-ended outputs for left and right. So not just 1, but 2 single-ended outputs. Now, all of these will follow the volume control. But if I would, to, say of any changes, sometimes, people still like to record or have a tape out. That would be nice. And then another thing is 12-volt control, because all we get on the power side is just, power on and off, and then we get, the power receptacle. So, yeah, 12-volt control would be really, really, really cool. So, yeah, and once again, these little feet, these are not stock feet, just so we understand. So, now, let's talk about the differences between them, the actual sound differences between okay, S has a Nexus stage for solid state stage. Freya has a JFET stage for gain. I was under the impression originally that the solid state gain stage of the Freya Plus was exactly the same as the Freya S. And that is untrue because, once again, my chart, we'll go back to the chart, is that the 1X, Freya S is Nexus, Freya Plus is JFAT. Okay, so we got that. So, but the Freya Plus then has the tubes, but you're still with Nexus here. So what is the sound difference between the two? And just to break it down really quickly, is that to me, Freya Plus is more like refined and more like a hi-fi preamp. More just like hi-fi. I mean, I don't have a way to, but it is a little bit more refined in sound quality to me. The S seemed to have some sort of like hardness to the sound, but it still does a very, very good job. And I probably wouldn't even have noticed like the sound differences. I would have been very happy had I not somebody sent me this. So I'll go through the differences. And I remember watching a video a long time ago and somebody said they love the Freya, but like the tube mode was like the absolute best. This is the only way. And I don't think so. I think the JFET buffer mode is fantastic. So, the 1X, like I said, oops, I didn't mean to hit the camera. The 1X on the S is a little sharp. It's a little, I don't know. There's just a hardness to the sound, I think, with the S over the Plus. It is lively, but it does sound a little sharp and a little aggressive. The 1X, and this is where I said that I probably even wouldn't have noticed the difference if somebody didn't send me this. But then when I switched to this, I immediately was like, oh, wow, things are smoother. Things are deeper. Things are more relaxed. Things are more detailed and natural. And that's where I felt like the differences like really were between these two. And I was like, it didn't sound like it was like straining to deliver the sound or like really up front. It just gave it a more sort of well-rounded sound where music, I felt like, or anything that was in it, like just flowed through the preamp and didn't get in the way. And that's why I say that it sounds like very sort of transparent. I think is more true to the source. Then when you get to the 4X, is that's when you really start to, kind of see a change, even so in the gain structure of the two of them. The S I felt was a little more flatter sound stage than the 1X, in the same box. And there was less sharpness, and it was a little bit warmer, but it also sounded a little bit duller. Like I didn't feel like I was as connected or I was hearing as much details. It still sounded fine. There was something that I felt like was missing. So, but then when I went to 4X on this, and I will say this before I talk about 4X, any sort of tubes are going to change. Like you change the driver tube, you change the buffer tube, it's going to change. The driver tube is probably going to have more difference than the buffer because this is what's doing all of your gain. And for these electro-harmonics tubes that are in it, they were very clean, gave me even deeper, more air, more details, a little more reverb trails, made it a little more lively, a little more engaging. The tongue saw tubes I used were a little bit warmer, a little bit less air. They gave me a little bit more like tube fullness or like richness in the mids, but I don't think that really gave me a lot of more top end or bottom end. I still liked it, but it wasn't. I just felt like the electro harmonics were kind of cleaner. you can get them with whatever that you want. I don't know what they actually ship with. Is whatever they can get there. I think they ship with the tongue saw tubes if you order them with the tongue saw tubes. I never tried them with the list tubes, and really, to be quite honest, in either amp, I probably wouldn't even use 4x gain unless I was really using an unbalanced source. Like if I was using an unbalanced source for my, you can see here my turntable, if you got like a cassette deck, like any of that stuff is going to it's not really even full 2-volt output, like a lot of times. So you really have to try to get, and even if you're going to a balance, even if I'm 2 volts, that's unbalanced, but then I'm going to a balanced amplifier. So yes, 4 gain is probably too much, but then it's adding so much. It's it's still I don't know what you call it, not like a free lunch, but it's still, even with tubes, signal to noise ratio is still 115 dB. It is like getting a free lunch. Like you're getting more gain to the amplifier, which the amplifier is the one that's going to have the most noise in your system, right? So if you can feed it more signal before you get there, then that's going to help everything else and help keep your distortion low in the amplifier and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, if you can give it a little, boost before you get there. So, because a lot of purists, the purist in me is like, I should just keep it in buffer mode. But then I start to think about it and I go, well, 4x is probably a little bit better, especially coming from an unbalanced source. And then that gives it even more. A balanced source, maybe a little bit too much. But you can still judge for yourself, right? You can, whether you enjoy it or whether you like it or not. There is a little bit of delayed difference in going to 4x from the S to the Plus. The S switching happens I don't want to say quickly. There is a little ramp up time, but it's only a few seconds. There is a loud pop though, which I don't really like. Going to the Freya, going from passive to 1x, there's no pop, happens immediately, but going to, you got to wait for the tubes to warm up. And it's almost like a full 30 seconds almost before the tubes come on and before that 4x gain mode kicks in. You could, like I said, you could run them without the tubes if you want. Even if you wanted just a 1x, never want to use 4x, you can buy a Freya Plus without tubes by itself. It actually makes it a little bit cheaper because of the tube prices being so high right now. And then if you ever want to use tubes, you have that option. You have the list tubes as well. Now, I don't know why the Novel, I guess it wasn't very popular. It's already discontinued. So Novel, to me, I think is a really cool option because I think that there's also a lot of great Novel tubes that you can use in the Freya. I think I saw them in closeout for $5.99, which is a really, really good deal. Because you can run all sorts of 6922 tubes and 6-in-1Ps, which are really cheap. The Russian version. It's really, really cool. I think it's really, really great. And you can even run 6CG7s, which 6CG7s are basically 6SN7s in a Novel version. So if you're curious about that, then you can just, run one of those tubes and, very similar thing to, a whole Freya Plus. So hopefully that answers a lot of questions about the difference if you're looking at between these two amplifiers. Like I said, I haven't tried the list tubes. If somebody wants to send me the list tubes, I would gladly try them and use them in my system and report back. That would be really, really cool. But again, thank you very much for watching. Help me get to 1,000 subscribers. Please like and subscribe and share with your friends. I'll talk to you guys later.